Hello and welcome back to the Antisocial Social Club with a K. My name is Bree, and I bring you whatever's on my mind for the day. I may react to things, I may comment on things, but today I will be covering Ben Shapiro. So, yesterday, while I was doom scrolling on TikTok, I found a couple of videos about Ben Shapiro and his outlook and what he thinks about young adults at this moment and the price of living, and he just thinks they should move. Okay. But without further ado, I'm just going to jump into the videos because it can be explained more. If I keep going, I'll just explain the videos in their entirety. So here we go.
Young person and you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here. I mean, that is a real thing. Yeah, I know that we've now grown up in a society that says that you deserve to live where you grew up, but the reality is that the history of America is almost literally the opposite of that. The history of America is you go to a place where there is opportunity. And if the opportunities are limited here and they're not changing, then you really should try to think about other places where you have better opportunities. If you're a young person and you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here. I mean, that is a real thing. Yeah, I know that we've now grown up in a society that says that you deserve to live where you grew up, but the reality is that the history of America is almost literally the opposite of that. The history of America is you go to a place where there is opportunity. And if the opportunities are limited here and they're not changing, then you really should try to think about other places where you have better opportunities.
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care. Let me tell you, we don't care.
Ben Shapiro has the most punchable face of anyone I think I've ever seen on the internet. But to make the assertion that if you can't afford to live where you're from in America as a young person, you should move is literally ridiculous. Housing costs have increased by 290% in America in the last 30 years. That is not okay. You know how much salaries have increased? Roughly in that same time period, 30%. So how can someone afford a house that is overpriced when their salaries haven't increased? Ben, but you know what's been up in this country? Productivity. Because you know why? America is a capitalist, this cog that abuses and takes advantage of our worker bee society and culture that says work, 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 work. You'll find the American dream when all that was doing was benefiting corporations. So now we have a whole generation of people, starting with my generation, which are millennials and younger, who are realizing, oh shit, I can't really afford to live where I want to live. Let's take me for an example. I'm from New York, and for me to buy something in New York, I would need to quadruple my income. And when I'm buying something, I'm not buying the brownstone that I want. I'm not buying the apartment that I want. I'm buying a one-bedroom apartment for $1.2 million. So yes, Ben, you tell me how we should just pick up and move, because where am I moving to? Missouri? You make no fucking sense. People like this who are born with privilege, always have had privilege, and think other people's problems aren't real, is the problem with people having podcast mics. Because the majority of the country, Ben, cannot afford to live where they're from.
If you're a young person and you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here. I mean, that is a real thing. Yeah, I know that we've now grown up in a society that says that you deserve to live where you grew up. But
the audacity is mind-blowing. It's too hard to fathom, really. Like, do these people know why so many of us are angry with them? Do they understand it? Because for the country that they advocate for, which isn't America, even if they are Americans, the country that they advocate for, the blue and white state, there's never enough money for them, from America, by the way, from hardworking Americans. And I can't say the name of this country because every time I do on here, I get in trouble. Ever since a person who loves that country very much became the American owner of it. But long story short, I don't want to hear you complain about people saying mean words to you or insulting things that make you offended, things that make you upset. I don't want to hear you complain about that. I don't want to hear you go on TV and go on these podcasts and talk about how this ism is such a problem while you continue to support what you're supporting, where innocent children and innocent women are being unalived on a daily basis. I don't want to hear you complain about Americans getting more and more angry with you and your cause while you tell us we should not complain about money. We should not be asking for help in terms of living, in terms of healthcare, while the country you advocate for gets all those things, gets free healthcare, gets free education, gets free housing on the back of the American taxpayer. So when you stop supporting that, I'll happily come to your defense and take your medicine.
Do you want to see something incredibly ironic? Of course you do. Have a watch of this.
If you're a young person and you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here.
Sorry, Ben, just one more time for us, please, mate.
If you're a young person and you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here. I mean, that is a real thing.
Right, I hope people have clocked on now. Can we hear that one more time, please?
If you're a young person and you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here.
Right, when someone tells me satire is gone, I'm just going to show them that clip, because I just saw, and you just saw, Ben Shapiro, a staunch Zionist, say, if you can't afford to live here, then maybe you shouldn't live there. But if you dare suggested that the only reason Zionists can live in the Middle East and Israel is because of the United States, and that if the United States was to withdraw both their military and financial support, they would not be able to live there, what would they do? They'd lose their minds. Do people not see the irony in that? I hope people can, because if you can't, don't worry. You'll get it soon enough.
Did you guys see this clown, Ben Shapiro, on his latest podcast? This dude, he had the audacity to say that for young people, if you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should move. The idea that you're supposed to live where you're born at is irrelevant. If you can't afford to live in America, then you should move to Mexico, Nigeria, Venezuela, a different country, because our politicians and government don't want to make America better for regular citizens. They want to make it great for the rich and the elite, but for the rest of us, move. That's what he just told us. If you're a young person and you're listening to this clown, you literally are about to play yourself, because we all know who he represents, what he represents, and everyone's scared of Muslims taking this country over. I would literally think hard about who's really trying to take this country over. The fact that that shit even came out of his mouth is fucking crazy to me. My dad served in the military. I have friends whose parents served in the military who risked their lives to be in America. And you have the audacity to fucking tell me to move because I can't afford it? Because we have corrupt politicians and politicians selling out to foreign interests in foreign countries? We gotta do better. We need to wake the fuck up.
The age of Ben Shapiro is finally coming to an end. His most recent statement, essentially saying that you don't deserve to live where you want to live, is probably the final straw in everyone realizing that he's not a right-wing conservative person. Ben Shapiro has been and always will be is a capitalistic shill, but not the type of capitalism that you like. It's a type of capitalism that has no value on humanity whatsoever. It's a type of capitalism that views America as an economy and not a country. It's the type of capitalism that essentially views the human as an economic unit and nothing else. And his statement sums it up, because why should you have the right to stay near your family, stay where you grew up, stay where you are attached to? The irony is that the only other ideology that makes the human simply a mean of production and economic unit is communism. And that's why over time, Ben Shapiro is being pushed further and further away from the Republican Party and brand.
Ben Shapiro said during an interview, he said that if you can't afford to live somewhere, then you should move. More specifically, he said if you can't afford anymore to live in your hometown, because of rising costs, which is kind of something that I understand, then you should move. You should get out of there. You should not be there anymore. Okay? And he emphasizes by saying that you are not entitled to stay there. Like, people are not entitled to stay in the towns they grew up or whatever because of rising costs. Instead of addressing the rising costs in housing and how unaffordable everything is, especially when it comes to the housing market, instead of addressing that and making houses cheaper for the next generation, because right now I believe the average of home ownership is around 50. Instead of doing that, he's like, no, just move somewhere else. Move it. Like he can easily just move and pick up and move, right? Move somewhere else, move to a different place, leave your family, ancestral lands behind. Like, the place that you started, you should just leave it if you can't afford to be there.
Ben Shapiro has a message for all of the Americans who are struggling to survive right now. If you can't afford to live here, simply get out of the country. He doesn't mention fixing wages, lowering costs, or making life better for working families. He just wants us to leave the country. Take a look. If you're a young person and you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here. I mean, that is a real thing. Yeah, I know that we've now grown up in a society that says that you deserve to live where you grew up, but the reality is that the history of America is almost literally the opposite of that. So that's what they think about blue-collar Americans, the very people who build this country, power the economy, and keep everything running. This is the mentality of an elite bubble that has never struggled to pay rent or never had to work overtime just to stay afloat. Millions of families in this country are struggling right now, and it's not because they're lazy. It's because the economy has been rigged against workers for decades now, while the wealthy cash in at record levels. Let's talk about what actually matters. Wealth inequality in this country is the worst it's been since the Gilded Age. The billionaires have never been richer, and corporate profits are at record highs. Meanwhile, wages for working-class Americans have barely budged in decades. And what has Trump done to fix all of this? Well, of course, hand out massive tax breaks to billionaires and corporations. Now inflation is on the rise yet again because of his ridiculous policies and incompetence, squeezing working families even more. But instead of addressing any of that or holding the billionaires accountable, their message is leave if you don't like it.
So, after I had watched those videos yesterday, I decided to do a little research. And with what Ben Shapiro was saying was, if you can't afford to be where you are, you should move. And even if we were to move to the closest countries to us, i.e. Canada and Mexico, we would still be coming out significantly out of pocket to leave the country to move somewhere else. Because the Canadian dollar is less than the American dollar, and the Mexican peso is less than the American dollar, but you would still have to come out of pocket a significant amount of money to be able to move countries. So there's a whole list here. You could pause and read. I'm going through slowly, and this is on the low end. It's balancing between the low end and the high end, but I will pause on the list because it's an itemized list towards the bottom. Oh, I don't know where there's the itemized list. So just for a household shipping, it can be anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000. And this is for a family of four. So an average family of four. Your visa and legal fees can be anywhere from $600 to $2,000 plus. Your flights and travel could be $1,200 to $2,500 plus. Your first rent and deposit could be from 15 to 35 plus. And for setup and miscellaneous furniture's deposit altogether, I mean, it could be 1,000 to 3,000 plus. So total estimate anywhere in between $6,000 to $20,000. And in certain situations, just having that much money to leave the country would take you a while to save up, definitely saying that you're still trying to pay your bills. But we also got the option to move to Canada, which is a lot more expensive. You could pause and read all of the fees and stuff that, like, you can get a detailed breakdown of things. But here's the itemized list, and you can see for yourself, like, technically, like, on a high end, moving to Canada would be $25,000 plus. And if you have that amount of money to move countries, then you should be able to afford to stay where you're at. I can also say that I was also getting from this that he was saying that you do not have to like leave the country. That's just the extreme side of what I was getting from it. But even if you were to live in the stay in the states, if you were even to stay in the states, you also have to think that like what job you're doing in, say for instance, California, and you want to go live somewhere cheap, i.e. Oklahoma. My husband's from California. I'm from Oklahoma. And um the minimum wage in both areas is drastically different. Like I've even looked that up. Let's see here. The minimum wage in Oklahoma is $7.25. $7.25. It's the same as federal. And the minimum wage in California statewide is $16.50. So if you say, for instance, it's too expensive for you to live in California and you're working as let's say, let's see. I'm trying to think of like a receptionist. You're working as a receptionist. You're getting a little bit above minimum wage, but it's hard for you to survive in California. So you decide that, hey, it's cheaper in Oklahoma, I'm gonna move to Oklahoma. You won't be getting the same pay in California for a receptionist as you would in Oklahoma for a receptionist. So either way it goes, you move from one state to the other, you're still going to be struggling because how much it costs to live outweighs what the average person is getting paid. So this whole notion of, hey, if you can't afford it, you should just leave, is kind of bonkers to me, because there's other ways that we could have been taking down the prices of things. Like, I am not a politician and I don't know exactly how finances work in America, but what I do know is that raising the minimum wage only raises the cost of living. We need to find a way to bring the cost of living down so that we can survive. Like, I've said it before. I mean, I was considered a middle class family. I'm not saying I'm broke and destitute or anything, but with what's going on now in America, the price of things have drastically gotten different. Like, you might not see it every day, but when you're a person like me that likes to budget out their money and see, like, spend a certain amount on groceries and this is my budget for my gas and all this stuff, when I see that money that was getting me along 2 years ago is not doing that now, it's a little frustrating. So I have an adult son, and he would love to move out and do his own thing, but right now where we live, he can't afford it. Like, when I was 18, I left my parents, I got my own spot, and I did my thing. Like, I lived just fine. Yeah, I had a roommate, but it only took two of us to be able to hold down a household. Now, in today's society, for a 3-bedroom, you need at least 4 or 5 roommates on just to make it. So, I mean, what Mr. Shapiro had to say didn't really make any sense. And I don't think that that was something that he should put out to young people. I think he should be trying to help. Like, he has a voice to be able to say things. He should be trying to help push down some of the prices in the economy. Now, I'm not saying he's a political figure, but people do listen to him. But that is all I have for today. This is the Antisocial Social Club with the K. And if there's anything that you agree with or disagree with, you can always leave a comment down below. Again, this is your girl Bree, and I'm out. Bye.